Hi, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and this is the digital reader battery life challenge for the Meebook M8. Now, whenever I do a battery life challenge, what I like to do is I try to read every day for at least an hour. I track the days it took to finish the book. I track the actual hours that I read the book. And I track the battery percentage, the start and the finish, what they were when I started the book and what the battery percentage was when I finished the book. And I track my battery percentage from 100% to 10%. I feel like, at least for me, I will always be charging my devices when they reach 10%. I'm not ever really going to run around with a device I have that's under 10% life. So for me, 10% is when I would charge it and reset. Now for the Meebook M8, I wanted to track the battery life with the backlight on and with the backlight off. But I found that with the backlight off, it was very hard for me to read in enough brightly lit locations to get my hour of reading in. So I'll say up front, this is kind of combined, but I would say that the backlight was on about 75% of the time, and it was on about 25%. I like to keep my backlight as low as possible so it's readable but not blasting me in the eyes and using up a ton of battery. So just keep that in mind. With a lot of my other e-reader devices, the screen is wide enough that most of the time I don't use the backlight, so it's kind of flipped where I might use the backlight like 25% of the time. But just wanted to make that clear. So I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. That took me from 100% to 30%. I read 560 pages, and I read for 10 and a half hours over 8 days. And then I read He Who Hesitates by Ed McBain. That took me from 30% to 10%. I read 157 pages, and I read for 4 hours over 2 days. So the total battery life was over 10 days. I got 14 and a half hours out of it. And looking at the other devices I have, looking at my list, this is pretty terrible. The biggest issue with the Meebook M8 is it was just constantly draining battery. Even when I wasn't doing anything, the battery would drain. Where, for example, with the Books page or the Go 7 Gen 1, when I wasn't doing anything, the battery was pretty stable, and that implementation of e-ink really worked well as far as sipping battery life, and it didn't constantly have notifications that would drain it. And more importantly, when the device was completely powered off, it wouldn't drain battery, where with the Meebook M8, even when it was completely powered off, the battery would drain a little bit. So it is a very disappointing battery life. It did worse than every other e-ink device, and it actually did worse than the TCL 50 Nextpaper 5G in Max Ink mode, which is thumbs up for the TCL Nextpaper 5G in Max Ink mode, but not really a vote of confidence for the Meebook M8. So that's my battery life challenge for the Meebook M8. Kind of disappointing. This is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.